Patriots were absolutely dominated by the Bills on Monday night, so we're going to look at what went wrong defensively. Well, a lot went wrong, but we're going to focus on the cornerback position. I'm Mariah, Janos, joined by Evan Lazar. Let's talk about J.C. Jackson. Are you losing confidence in him as the number one corner for the Patriots after seeing Stephon Diggs kind of take him to school?
Certainly a little bit. It's hard to kind of ignore the two matchups against Diggs and that game against Brashad Perryman, where Stephon Gilmore did not play in those 3 games. And in those 3 games, J.C. Jackson has given up 268 yards and 4 touchdowns into his coverage. And I think what you see with Jackson and the difference between him and a guy like Gilmore right now, and it's a little bit unfair to compare anybody to Stephon Gilmore. I mean, he is an elite cornerback, but just looking at it from that perspective, I think you see in J.C., he has spurts of really good play. I mean, he started out that game last night playing extremely well against Diggs, very competitive in coverage against him. But the issue is that he has those lapses, those momentary lapses where Diggs was able to expose him, like the 50-yard touchdown, where Stephon Gilmore probably doesn't have those types of consistent inconsistencies down to down. Gilmore, very even-keeled guy. He kind of plays every single play like the same, every single down to down, very consistent. J.C. Jackson, it's kind of more peaks and valleys. And that's a little bit to do with the cornerback position as a whole. It's a very volatile position. But again, I think that it's about J.C. Jackson learning that he doesn't always have to ball hawk. He doesn't always have to make the big splash play. Sometimes, like on the 50-yarder where Diggs is crossing over the middle, J.C. Jackson, the play action pass sucks up the linebacker level. There's no deep safety coming over to cut the crosser. J.C. Jackson gets beat at the line of scrimmage. He's beaten on the route. And instead of trying to just make the tackle and mitigate the damage, he tries to undercut it and pick off the pass. Those are the little types of plays that as, you kind of mature as a corner, you realize, okay, sometimes I'm just beat, and the best thing that I can do is instead of letting a 50-yard touchdown happen, just make it a 20-yard gain by just making the tackle, and you live to play another down, and you get off the field on a different set of downs. That's, I think, what the next step for J.C. Jackson is realizing that he doesn't always have to come up with that big splash play. Sometimes just making the tackle and going back to the huddle and living to play another day is what you need to do at that position.
So would you just chalk it up to being young and learning?
I think a little bit, when you speak to J.C. Jackson, and this is something that I was sort of on my radar, he likes to call himself a ball hawk now. And you always get worried when corners start to call themselves ball hawks because you wonder if they're thinking a little bit too much about interceptions and pass breakups and, like I've been saying, splash plays, those highlight reel type of plays that make Sports Center and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just the sort of regular, consistent, open field tackling, that type of thing that ends up working out a lot better for you than trying to go for that play. So I think that he needs to learn when to take those chances and when not to take those chances, especially when he gets elevated to that number one cornerback spot and he is going up against a guy like Stephon Diggs of that caliber. It's one thing if you're undercutting a route by the number 3 receiver or you're undercutting a route by a low-end number 1 receiver, but when you're going up against the best of the best, sometimes you are going to lose. And I think Gilmore has, more than maybe any other cornerback in the league, realized that I am not going to win every single rep, but I can make sure that I can limit the damage on every single rep. And I think that's exactly the next sort of step for J.C. Jackson in his game.
All right. Patriots Press Pass is brought to you by the Legends brand. Visit thelegendsbrand.com/Horford and use the promo code Horford20 to get 20% off your next purchase. That's thelegendsbrand.com/Horford and use the promo code Horford20 in all caps. So we've just compared J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore. I almost said Stephon Diggs there. What does this mean for Stephon Gilmore now? We talked and we thought he's going to be here for the rest of the season. Come this summer, he's gone. Do you think the Patriots are rethinking keeping him around now?
I don't think so, because Bill Belichick's not really the one to overreact to 1 or 2 games and completely change his, stance on something based off of that. But Stephon Gilmore has all the leverage in the world right now with the Patriots. I mean, especially if they do keep him on the roster going into next season. I don't know why Gilmore would report to camp on the last year of his deal when he knows how valuable he is to this defense, and he can just go ahead and point to these couple of games where he didn't play and say, look at your secondary and your pass pass defense when I wasn't out there. I mean, this is obviously night and day for the Patriots versus when, you know, they have Gilmore and everybody's in the right spot on the pecking order. So if Gilmore does stick around, I mean, they kind of have to trade him in the offseason at this point if they're going to move him, because I don't know why Gilmore would report to camp. I don't know why he would be happy with his contract situation going into a contract year on a team that's rebuilding. It just seems like Gilmore has all the cards right now, and the Patriots are sort of left in this, you know, difficult position. And we kind of say this about them all over their roster, which isn't a great sign, that, you know, Gilmore kind of has, you know, the trump card on them right now of saying, you guys don't have a number one corner. JC is a good young cornerback, but he's really best as a number two with me on the other side. And then they have to target him against a number two wide receiver. And then that's when he gets those interceptions. And when I go out of the game and he's got to take Stephon Diggs one-on-one, it becomes a problem for you guys. And what, you know, I think that is certainly something that Bill Belichick and Stephon Gilmore kind of debated at the negotiating table going into this season, whereas Stephon Gilmore knew his worth and knew his leverage at that point of the season too, and that got that pay bump or that little bonus check as a result. So I think Gilmore really has them right where he wants them, quite frankly. And this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Patriots, because I think a lot of people talking about quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, rightfully so, linebacker, front seven help. But if they lose Gilmore, don't rule out cornerback as one of those top needs as well, because I don't think that they're going to look at it and say that a combination of J.C. Jackson and Jawan Williams is going to get the job done next year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Training camp attendance is always very telling, so we'll see. For all of our Patriots coverage, head to clnsmedia.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel over at Patriots Press Pass.